it was all bad news yesterday regarding the economy from Rachel Reeves, first female Chancellor, by the way. I didn't know if you know that. They never tell us that.
Far from cutting our taxes when it comes to October, the next budget, we will see more tax rises. Doesn't sound like a very Labour thing to do to me. If the Tories did this, the media would be dragging them over hot coals.
Is most prime ministers who get rid of their Chancellor, they go next. Hi everybody, and welcome back to Nick Talks. This episode's returning guest is my friend Ash, that Preston journalist. Thanks, Ash. How are you doing?
Really good, thanks, Nick. How are you?
I'm good. I've asked you to come on today for one purpose and one purpose only. Yesterday we had the spring statement, which isn't a budget because that happens in the autumn. This is basically, or tell me if I'm wrong, this is basically an update saying how well the budget's doing from last year. That's my interpretation. It was yesterday, Rachel Reeves went to Parliament to update the House about how great she is as the first female Chancellor, and the economy is doing amazing, and she's going to be reducing taxes in the autumn. And in fact, it's going that well. She's looking at returning some of our taxes in our pay packets. Is any of that bollocks true?
No, none of it. There is no way. I would put serious money now on the fact that far from cutting our taxes when it comes to October, the next budget, we will see more tax rises. There is no way this economy is going to recover. The biggest, obviously these are just projections from the OBR, but the biggest projection was something like 2029, and that was 1.9%. That's not growth. And the OBR, which Labour also failed to mention, included in their assessment of this spring statement that they may have to revise that downwards come the autumn. Let's not forget, the OBR, they do good work, to be fair to them, actually, and they're usually quite honest, but it is essentially a government body. It's a government quango. So, of course, they're going to work with the government. And there was two big things, again, that Labour didn't bother to include in the spring statement. So, they didn't talk about the fact that Trump could be putting tariffs on the UK economy. And they said they were confident of talking Trump out of that and having a different approach. Well, lo and behold, just hours later, Donald Trump came forward and did exactly that. He's put a 25% tariff on all cars imported into the US. Or in fact, it's all non-US made cars and car parts. And that's our second biggest export to America, cars. So that's a 25% tariff, big hit to the economy. Also, Labour refused to hand over the impact assessment, and they refused to hand over what their predictions were about the impact of this workers' rights bill, or whatever it's called, the employment rights bill. So when this comes in, you're going to see even more jobs lost, of course, because we've got increased, national insurance contributions. So we don't know what the impact of that is going to be, and neither do the OBR. So as soon as that comes in and we see more jobs gone, bear in mind that 203,000 businesses have closed their doors since Labour came to power, it's going to be even worse after April when these bills come in. And that's going to be another knock to the economy, because there's going to be more people out of work, less people paying tax, and more people claiming money off the state. In short, it's been a complete disaster. Saying that by 2030, this is the government's own impact statement, 250,000 more people will be living in poverty, in relative poverty in Britain, including 50,000 more children. Doesn't sound like a very Labour thing to do to me. If the Tories did this, the media would be dragging them over hot coals. They'd be going absolutely mad, and Labour MPs would be the first ones to stand up saying the nasty party and all that.
Right, so it was all bad news yesterday regarding the economy from Rachel Reeves, first female Chancellor, by the way. I didn't know if you know that. They never tell us that. Now, I didn't watch the spring statement. It bores the life out of me when it comes to economics and politics. But I'm sure when she stood there at dispatch box, I'm sure she took no blame. And I'm sure she had a raft of excuses about why things are going wrong. Is that true? And what were those excuses?
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, and I actually put a video out yesterday saying play your own game of Rachel Reeves bingo because I knew exactly what she was going to say. It's so predictable now. It was Trump's fault, which she wants to be careful because last week she got wrapped on the knuckles by Starmer and Number 10 for blaming Donald Trump because they're scared to death of annoying him because he can put some serious hardship their way. Putin, of course, was another one. She says that world events have changed. No, they haven't. They're exactly the same as they were in October. And blaming Trump, by the way, last time I checked, Trump wasn't even the president when you gave your stupid budget out in October. So blaming Trump is just a pathetic excuse. 22 billion black hole. Absolutely ridiculous. So predictable. And the most recent polling by Google shows that 70% of people now don't believe the black hole ever existed. That's the credibility they've got. But these people seem to think all they've got to do is repeat the same phrase over and over and over. And the thickos in the public, the great unwashed, will believe it. It's not working. Over half of the public now think she needs to go. And they're not trusted on anything, Labour. The Tories now more trusted on the cost of living crisis than Labour as well in the most recent polling. Something like 60-40, around that mark. These things are going absolutely dreadfully. And Starmer is keeping her for one reason till May. And then he can in May, he can blame the local election walloping they're going to get on Rachel Reeves, and she'll be another one of his human shields, his female human shields. It always seems to be women that he uses as human shields, but she'll be the one that falls, and he'll blame it on her for the budget, and it gives him a credible excuse to get rid of her, and he might just be able to save his own neck for a bit longer.
That is a possibility. What he'll know, though, is most prime ministers who get rid of their chancellor, they go next. And we see that all the time. And he's connected to her more than most prime ministers are connected to their chancellors. Yeah. Not mal, of course, he appointed her, but he's praised her. He's stuck up for everything she's done. He's gone on about how she's the first female chancellor. They're wedded at the hip. They'd be very. I'm not saying it's impossible, because politicians will stab each other in the back to survive. Of course, they will. That's the nature of the beast. And he's going to want a fall guy for the beating they're going to get in May. And maybe it's her. Maybe he thinks he can, kill two birds with one stone. Her.
You spot on there, about them being wedded together. This is one of Starmer's main problems, isn't it? He's stuck by her he's been so steadfast, should I say, around her. And that's because it's an open secret that Starmer, doesn't know anything about economics. He actually wants nothing to do with the economic policies of his own government. So all he's done, which is pretty unheard of, really, is hand over the entire financial future of the country to one person and said, do what you like. And he's had nothing to do with it. And so he's got to back her up because he hasn't got the first idea what he's talking about when it comes to this kind of thing. So yeah, he's completely wedded to her, and she's his strongest ally. And you're right, if they get rid of the chancellors, the chances are the prime minister goes not long after. But if he can, well, you'd have to completely throw her under the bus. She couldn't be allowed to resign because that would give her credibility. She'd have to be thrown under the bus completely, and they'd have to point to all of her failings and say, look what she's done. We didn't realize that, she was going to be so bad. We thought she said she knew what she was doing. She'll be completely thrown under the bus by this parliamentary party just to try and save Starmer's neck. Now, she deserves it. Don't get me wrong. She's absolutely hopeless, but he deserves it as well. He put her there, and look at the state of the economy. We had the fastest growing economy in the G7 when the Tories left office. We're now the slowest. That tells you all you need to know.
To be fair to Starmer, and I don't do this very often, to be fair to Starmer, he appointed her as Chancellor because she had an amazing CV. And he looked at her CV and thought she knows what she's doing. Unfortunately, as we know, that CV was make-believe, and most of the things on it was lies.
Yeah, that's true. You got to remember, right, in these parliamentary parties, I'm sure you know this, but for anybody watching, you have the whips, and the whips make people vote how they want the parliamentary party to vote. These people are whips for a reason, because they are ruthless people. Gavin Williamson was an infamous whip in the Tory party. Very softly spoken man. Always came across as a bit wet, actually, in the media. But nothing of the sort. very, very feared within the Tory party, Gavin Williamson, because, like every whip, he had, what should we say, leeway on all of these MPs. He knew everything that they'd done in the past. He knew the things they didn't want to come out in the media. And this is what's happening. You know, Gavin Williamson, I'll tell you this, I know this for a fact, right? When he was trying to intimidate people into voting a certain way, he used to get he had a pet tarantula in his office. And he used to get it out and let it run towards the people he was trying to get to, like, run around the desk and that, and scare the crap out of the people he was trying to get to vote certain ways. That's an effective whip. But yeah, I've got off track a little bit there, I know.
No problem. Let me follow up with this question. So the economy's tanking, her budget's failed, the spring statement was basically an hour of excuses. Is there anything she can do to save her career, her job, and save the economy? And there may be things she can do. Is there any chance of the Labour Party doing any of those things?
Just going back to that original point, I just remember what the point was. The point was that the whips would have told Starmer about her past. I reckon they knew. They've just put her there because she's the only one that's got any sort of background in business or finance. So they thought, oh, well, she's the best of a bad bunch and we'll stick her there. That's what I think happened. What she can do for the future is actually, the welfare cuts aren't a bad idea. I'm actually all in favour of that. Getting rid of some of these personal independence payments and things like that. I'm not in favour of taxing the disabled and taking money off the disabled, but any doldosser sitting around who should be going to work, I'm all in favour of that. I've got no issues whatsoever, which is probably why most of the Labour Party hate it, because if it's pleasing someone like me, then it's obviously not very good for Labour. But if she can make savings in that direction, I mean, what the welfare budget is now bigger or around the same as the NHS budget. It's absolutely huge. You're talking a couple of 100 billion in this country now. You've got over 53% of people relying, well, working people that is, relying on the state in some way, shape, or form. So you've got a minority that support themselves, trying to prop up their families and all these scroungers. So they're targeting the right areas. The problem is, and I think you said this last time, it's not a Labour thing to do. You would expect the Tories to do something like this, be a bit more hardline, try and get people back into work. Labour don't do that because Labour rely on dossers to vote for them because they think they'll get more benefit payments out of them. And that's why they're having such a tough time. Now, thankfully for Starmer, the hard left is something of a big minority within the party now. And also, thankfully for Starmer, we're still just close enough to the last election to have all this new contingent of MPs who are still frightened of their own shadows, and they won't vote against the government yet. But there are quotes coming out from the Labour Parliamentary Party. Esther McVeigh, the Tory MP, she said she was walking around the Commons last week and she saw somebody in the corner in tears. It turned out it was one of the new Labour MPs. And she was in tears and she said she didn't know it would be this bad. She didn't know she'd have to vote for half of this stuff and she didn't want to, but she'd lose her job if she didn't. And that really sums up where this parliamentary party is with this hopeless cabinet. I've got another quote for you from an anonymous Labour MP. What on earth are we doing cutting the basic rate of universal credit to meet our fiscal rules? It's embarrassing and the parliamentary party are close to losing it. These people know that if they keep voting with this government, that, to be honest with you, is not pleasing anybody. It's one by one, every demographic in this country every section of society has been impacted negatively by this government. And they know that if they keep voting for these policies, they're going to lose their jobs. So is it better to try and go out in some sort of blaze of glory or try and be an independent like Rosie Duffield's doing now, try and keep your seat that way by standing up to these people? Or are you just going to lose your seat and lose your new job? Because, let's face it, a lot of these people who are there now can't believe their luck. They're like, wow, look where I'm working. This magnificent historic building. I get to sit in the Commons every day. I get to debate this. I get a fat salary. I get lots of expenses. It's a world that a lot of these people have never known before. So they're obviously very happy to have it. But maybe that's more important than principles. I think we'll find out in the next few months as these policies kick in.
Oh, I think it's definitely the money is very attractive and principle. You can buy new principles if you've got enough money. And I think some of these MPs, especially the newer MPs, will feel the backlash at weekends when they're home, when they're in their town and their local people are speaking to them and they start getting some verbal abuse, and they've got a disabled person saying, "Why are you cutting my money?" And regardless of what they say, "I didn't vote for it. I abstained. I'm against it." Well, it's your party. It's your party that I don't know how some of these MPs will be able to sleep at night, especially Labour MPs. I mean, regardless if they're right or wrong, they go into power. So they go into politics to improve the lives of the poorest, or so they tell themselves. And I don't know how they're going to be able to cope where they live when local people are talking to them.
But I did an interesting video recently where I talked about the local elections coming up, and I heard a rumor, I had an email somebody, and it was talking about Durham, and it said that Labour, despite the fact that Labour are very big in the northeast for now, they're afraid to go on campaign. They can't find anybody, or very, very few people, to actually go out with Labour leaflets, post them through someone's letterbox, and actually speak to voters. So I did a video and I said, let me know where you're from in the comments, and let me know what county you're from, and then let me know if you've seen any activists from any party, and just see what's looking. Nobody had seen one Labour person knocking around one area. I think this was Durham, actually. The Labour leaflets are actually being delivered by Royal Mail. They're actually paying Royal Mail to do it because no one's going out. Nobody wants to face up to the voters. And I mean, I can't just blame Labour for that, because there was other parties as well. Most people said they hadn't seen anybody. But then there was some that had seen different parties. Some had seen a couple of Tories. Some had seen Lib Dems. Lib Dems are always out there because they're very good at that. And Reform, some people have seen a few Reform activists going around, but not one person. And people were messaging me from literally up and down the country, in Scotland, down to Portsmouth, down to Cornwall, Kent, everything. Nobody had seen a Labour activist anywhere on the street. And I normally get something coming through the door here in the run up to local elections. Nothing this year.
It's easy. It's easy to go door knocking for a political party when you're in opposition, because you knock on that door and you say, "Isn't this government terrible? Aren't they treating you poorly? Do you want to pay less tax? Do you want more benefits? Do you want this? Do you want that?" That's what we're going to do when we get into power. When you're in power, to go back to those same doors and knock on those doors while you're in power now and you're cutting everything and you're taxing people more. Let's be honest, I wouldn't do it, and I'm pretty sure you wouldn't do it. That's a hiding for nothing.
I did sort of do it when I stood for the council once, and it was when Theresa May was making absolute balls up of the Brexit thing, trying to get it through Parliament, and she couldn't. And that was in local elections. I can't remember what year it was now. 2019, maybe, something like that. 18.
Yeah, 17, 18 it would have been, yeah.
Yeah. And I stood as a Tory then, and I was getting some abuse on the doorsteps. I persevered. I carried on. But it was mostly from people that wanted Brexit to happen, and they were saying, "Well, you lot are making an absolute mess of it." But you're right; you can't distinguish. You are essentially then to that person the face of this party, and that doesn't matter if you're a local councillor, if you're a mayor, if you're an MP. You are the face of that party, and you're going to get both barrels if that party is making a mess of things. And God only knows what it's like to be a Labour activist at the minute. Not that I would ever be a Labour activist, of course, but you're right. If I was that way inclined, I wouldn't be knocking on doors and asking people to vote for me.
Let's send a prediction. You think Rachel Reeves won't be here much longer? Tell me the month. What month will she be gone?
Oh, it's a good one. You know, all these commentators, all the establishment well-to-do commentators are saying, "Oh, she's got 2 years left yet. Yeah, 2 years. You can't sack her yet." Rubbish. She will go. I'll make a prediction. She won't be here by the budget, which is October.
October. So she won't be delivering the next budget.
No, she won't deliver the next budget.
Right, Joe. I'm going to bookmark that, and we'll discuss this at the next budget. I think she'll be gone. I don't know. I don't know if she will be gone. I think there's more of a chance Starmer could fall before her.
You don't think Starmer would gladly sacrifice her to save himself, though?
Oh, absolutely. But he may not have that opportunity. He may not have the opportunity. She's done a terrible budget, but he takes some responsibility for that. The one popular, he takes responsibility for that. He's got no charisma. It's not his fault. It's his personality type. He's not a Tony Blair sort of character. So they need someone with some charisma, regardless of how bad the budget is. I think there's more chance he won't be here in the next budget rather than her.
Interesting.
Shall we wait and see?
Yep, we shall.
Ash, thanks very much, and I'll catch up with you again soon.
Yeah, cheers, Nick. Pleasure.
Bye bye.